And welcome, everyone. This is PI Perspectives. We're doing a quick little segment here because I wanted to get the word out about the New Jersey Private Investigator Association, NJLPIA. They are having a conference in September from the 22nd to the 23rd in East Windsor, New Jersey. We have the president of the New Jersey State Association, Jim Nanos, here with us. Jim, tell me a little bit about this event. What's going to happen?
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me on today. We haven't done a conference in New Jersey in several years, so we thought we'd kick one off this year. We're going to do a one-day training seminar, as you said, September 22nd and the 23rd. So the 22nd is going to be our regular association meeting, which is, as always, is open to every PI. And then following the regular meeting, the general meeting, we're going to have a 3-hour hospitality room meet and greet that will be sponsored by the association, a couple vendors, for our folks to get together and meet some vendors, meet other PIs, and really just rub a little bit with other folks and talk about some business. So that's a big event Sunday night, and then the full conference kicks off Monday morning. Starting at 8 o'clock, we're going to have breakfast first. It'll be a fully catered event. We're going to have breakfast and a number of speakers, and we're looking forward to it. So we're going to kick off. It's going to be in East Windsor, New Jersey, at the National Conference Center, which is conveniently located in the state. It's not too far south, not too far north, and it's right at the end of the turnpike. So it's within driving distance of almost everybody. And we're also encouraging folks from Pennsylvania and New York who aren't necessarily members of our association but want to get some training to come on down with a great lineup of speakers.
Yeah, the old Mason-Dixon line of New Jersey. I think you're good.
That's true.
Okay, so let's
that's the turnpike. Yes, it is.
let's talk about the speakers, because that's what's important here. The content. You got a full day scheduled, so why don't you break it down for me real quick?
So we're kicking off first thing in the morning with representatives from the New Jersey State Police Private Detective Unit, which we're super stoked about. We've been trying to develop a relationship with those folks for a number of years. As most people in New Jersey would know, they're the people that do our vetting, and they're actually sending a couple representatives to speak to us and our membership about some licensing and easier way to produce or renew your license, and also what would be expected when they do a home visit or an office visit, a check one. Yeah, it's super important to the folks in New Jersey. When they get done, we're kicking off the morning session with Mr. David Beaver. David's an attorney from the state of New Jersey at the law firm Olson, Rosen, and Freed. Dave is an incredible attorney, specializes in matrimonial and cohabitation matters. He's going to be speaking about what a high-priced law firm would be looking for when they're out soliciting to hire a private investigator, how you can also make yourself a little bit more viable to those big firms out there when they're looking to hire people. David's a great guy, and folks will love chatting with David.
Let's talk about the next guy.
Okay, we got Mike Aletta, president of USA Bug Sweeps. Mike's going to be doing a bug sweep tutorial. Myself, Jim Nanos from Apple Investigations, I'll be doing remote camera access and deployment and use. The technology is fabulous now with remote access cameras. So we'll be doing a demonstration for that. Nick Truba from the Campbell Group will be out there doing an insurance block. And then in the afternoon, our keynote speaker is Bruce Jacobs of Leaking the Truth. Bruce who's an incredible speaker. He was the #1 person that was sought after for our association. Bruce will be doing a block on signs of deceptive behavior and statement analysis. And Bruce breaks down statements and deceptive behavior and tells us what to look for when we're interviewing people, and also when we're reviewing other folks' interviews that were done on video. What are some of the signs to look for?
Okay. All right, great. So it's a great day. I mean, I'll be there. I'll be sponsoring with Investigators Toolbox, and I'm looking forward. I'm also working on getting my license in New Jersey, so I'm really I'm looking forward to talking to the state troopers there and trying to get that thing going there. So it's njlpia.org. That's where you
or .com. They're both a redirect. So if you just type in New Jersey Licensed Private Investigators Association, that's a mouthful. You'll get to our website. There's a couple links right there to schedules there. You can book your ticket. You can reserve your room. If you're going to stay the night before, we've got reduced rates for the room. And all your meals are included in the registration. So you'll get all Sunday night and 2 meals on Monday. So your food, beverage, and open bar, everything's covered.
Cool. All right. So that's at the National Conference Center, September 22nd and September 23rd. Jim, thanks for coming on and talking real quickly about this. And folks, I encourage you, if you're in the tri-state area, it's time to network, time to get some business done. So come down, check it out, say hello to me if you're going to be there, and we'll go from there.
Managing a team of investigators just got easier with TrackOps, the all-in-one case management software. Are you ready to enhance case flows and drive efficiency? TrackOps offers powerful management and coordination tools to streamline workflows and communication, all designed to keep your team synchronized and focused on the task at hand. With TrackOps, you can easily distribute workloads, track individual performance, and ensure deadlines are met. Plus, the TrackOps mobile app allows investigators to access case activities on the go. And the TrackOps video app allows for simple and consistent timestamping, all included at no extra cost. Start streamlining your investigation process today. Visit trackops.com for a free 15-day trial and experience the power of efficient team management. TrackOps, empowering teams, simplifying management. This episode is brought to you by 4 Pillars Research, a nationwide leader in policy limit searches, now expanding its services to support private investigators working with injury attorneys. Since 2019, 4 Pillars Research has been known for its professionalism and top-tier customer service. If you're a private investigator, you know how crucial it is to provide accurate and complete information to your clients. Research can be time-consuming and challenging, especially when accuracy is non-negotiable. That's where 4 Pillars Research comes in. Unlike other firms that outsource their work, 4 Pillars handles everything in-house, ensuring you receive precise policy limit details of the at-fault party before litigation even begins. With 4 Pillars, you get more than just data. Each client is paired with a dedicated client engagement specialist, ensuring personalized service and meticulous attention to detail. And for those of you handling multiple cases, they even offer loyalty programs for high-volume clients. So if you're looking to elevate your investigative work and provide your clients with the best possible service, contact 4 Pillars Research today. Let them handle the complex research so you can focus on delivering results. That's 4 Pillar Research, your trusted partner in policy limit research. Reach out now and take your investigative services to the next level. Do you enjoy our podcast and the guests we bring you? Since 2019, Matt and his team have done their very best to give you amazing shows each week. If you feel like our show has helped you to be a better investigator, or maybe even inspired you to become an investigator, please let us know. We're looking for testimonials. Drop Matt an email with a recorded 20 to 30 seconds of you talking about this podcast. You can also email him something verbal about the website. His email is matthews@satellitepi.com. And if you really feel blessed for having this content, consider supporting Matt and our show by joining Investigators Toolbox. You really have to see version 2.0. And at just 49 cents a day, it's a no-brainer. Now let's jump in to this week's episode. We are back with a new show. Today we welcome Melody Bruns from Pivot Point Consulting. Melody had a very interesting career working with the FBI as an analyst. When she retired, she opened Pivot Point Consulting. Her company specializes in trend analysis and is a game-changing tool for certain investigations. So let's jump in and learn more. Please welcome Melody Bruns and your host, private investigator Matt Spaier.
And welcome everyone to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. We kind of have an interesting show today. I connected with somebody on LinkedIn, and as we started chatting a bit, and I understood exactly what she does and what her business model was, I was like, okay, this would be kind of cool to talk about in an episode. So I want to welcome Melody Bruns to the episode here. She has Pivot Point Consulting. So Melody, I want to welcome you to the program. How are you?
Thanks so much. I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, so we had connected through LinkedIn because you had responded to one of my podcast episodes. You did like a top 10 list, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to say where we ranked on it, but we did okay more than once. So
Yeah, you actually had 2 episodes from your PI Perspectives podcast that made it.
yeah,
We compiled that list, and we can get into that in a minute, but we compiled the list for our audience,
Mhm.
which is largely those in the PI industry. And we found that those 2 were really valuable information and provided a lot of insights for those in our audience. So yeah,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's not me, it's the people that are on the show. I'm really
Yes.
boring. I'm not an person, I promise you.
Well, you
Um,
surround yourself with very interesting people as well. So we're
always,
all drawn to
always,
you.
yeah, always better to know the guy or girl than be the guy or girl, right? Yeah, and the episode actually that you were referencing was one I did with Kelly Riddle, which involved a survey where he had polled investigators and investigative professionals all around the country, and then released the data of these findings and had him come on to the podcast, and we went over the findings. And we actually were just talking recently about doing another one, kind of like an updated um, survey, a little more towards technology and how the industry is shifting. So um, keep your radar open. That may be out before the end of the year. That's our
That would
goal with
be awesome. As an analyst, I love data.
that.
So that was
Yeah.
a wonderful, wonderful episode.
Thank you. And we were talking about doing a roundtable with it too. So it'll be more than Kelly. So we'll grab a couple people and just have a discussion over trends and where we think the industry is going in the next year or so. So
You mentioned that you guys may do that for per state as well, just instead of just nationally. Then you also mentioned that you may do that annually
yeah,
to be
yeah,
able to compare the data.
we're thinking of doing that. It just seems like it was very well received. Looking at the numbers of the consumption and the resharing. Um, I think it's helpful. People just want to know kind of where the industry is going and what it's about. You obviously have an interesting story to how you got into the industry. So why don't we pivot back to you because I am technically interviewing you and not doing a commercial for this freaking
No,
podcast. So
no, I love
go
it. And I
ahead.
love hearing what may be coming on the future podcast too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so a little bit about my background. I was an intelligence analyst with the FBI for 18 years. I worked initially primarily counterterrorism investigations for about
Hmm.
for 12. I then, after that, worked counterintelligence for a few years. And then I worked all white collar crimes for about 3 years after that. And that entails public corruption, embezzlement, complex financial crime, civil rights, anything white collar is what I did. Um, as an analyst in the Bureau, in order to be eligible for retirement, you do at least 30 years to be eligible. And that's a little different than the agents in the FBI. The agents typically have 20 years until they're eligible. And so analysts stay longer. So I had been in 18 years, loved what I did it in DC and in Texas, and just came to the point in my career where was just ready for something new. And I would have had 16 more years left
Right.
to be eligible. And I do have a business background. And so was really interested in just getting back to business and ended up leaving the FBI, taking some time. And that actually ended up being a really good blessing because I was approached during that time by some people that I had worked with before for different consulting opportunities.
Sure.
And so I learned through, people reaching out that there was a need for the skill set that I brought to the table, but in the private sector. And one of those individuals is a PI who happens to not have any law enforcement experience, which is why I was particularly appealing to assist that individual because they liked the background I had and it complemented right theirs. And so Pivot Point Consulting was kind of born out of that need and interest. And as I looked into the PI industry, I realized that you guys don't have a lot of analytical support like
Hmm.
the agents in the FBI do, and those in the other USIC entities. And so Pivot Point was born to begin providing PIs across the country that strategic analytic support.
Sure. So, we had talked about this before we had gotten online to do this episode. Like, there's a difference between the analytical research that you do and, going to do open source intelligence or something like that. So can you explain to me the differences that people might not realize, the benefits of having analysis done?
Yes, yes, love to. There's what we call a tactical analyst, and there's a strategic analyst. And so the tactical analyst are those analysts who do the tactical research. So that would be someone who would do OSINT, and they're kind of directed to, find out information on a particular individual or a particular company or organization, right? And then there is analysis that goes into that part of it. But strategic analysis is taking kind of that information and then looking at the trends across other cases as
Mhm.
well. So instead of being focused on the micro level, strategic analysts are focused on the macro level. So how does that case fit into the larger scheme of what we're seeing across the country? How does that fit into the larger trends that we're seeing across the country? And
Yeah,
so
I would
that's
say,
kind of broad.
yeah, I would say like if you're looking to show actual notice on something, or like, all right, here's a pattern in this particular city where this particular issue has been a problem, right? So as someone who's responsible for whatever, you should have known that this particular problem existed. Nothing was done about it. Okay, so now there's a cause of action, or there's an issue that needs to be resolved, right? So something like that,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, yes. And sometimes being aware of those trends create opportunities for private investigators, right? Because if you see that home contractor fraud is on the rise, right, then a PI may then, be, if they're aware that that's on the rise and they're aware that there's, some people on forums that have maybe said that they've been victimized of that, right? There's opportunities for them to go in and assist those victims of those crimes. So
Right.
same type of thing like deep fakes, obviously, is something that is on the rise, and it's something that we need to be aware of. And so Pivot Point Consulting, one of our avenues of getting information out to the community is through a newsletter that we have, and we write articles on these topics.
Sure.
And we say, this is what deepfakes are. Here's some examples across the country of what these investigations have looked like and how these perpetrators or actors, what methods they use to conduct that activity. So
Yeah.
then, if you get a case as an investigator, you're aware, okay, in these instances, they did that. Maybe I should look there first, or look at those schemes first.
Kind of game planning. That's smart. I think also from a marketing standpoint, right? So you can take that data and say like, okay, what's trending? Here are some issues that are popping up in this particular market. This happens to be my market, or this happens to be a market I want to get into, right? So now I can tier my advertising, my approach,
Yes.
my SEO to these particular issues, right? So there's definitely some added value there, right? If you know what the problems are going to be, or what the trends are going to be, and how to attack it from a marketing standpoint, as a business owner, I mean that's a win for sure.
Exactly. And additionally, if people cold call you, right, or potential clients call you and they ask you about a particular topic, if you're
Mhm.
informed of that topic, right, if you remember reading an article on that topic, then you can at least talk to that with some sort of credibility, whether or
Right.
not you decide to take the case or not. But just that interaction, your client will remember, oh, this person knew more than the average Joe on that
Right.
particular topic. And so they may refer a friend that, in the future. So just being aware, and this is really, it's essentially news for PIs. And
Yeah.
so instead of scouring all the news, right, we do that for you. And then we inform you of those trends in different areas and different spaces.
Yeah. I think if you're someone who's a talking head to somebody who does like a lot of press, or is known as like an expert on a particular industry, having that extra ammo to know what's going on could definitely be helpful, and add some credibility to what you're talking about.
Yeah, and one of the articles we did this year was on the key TAM move. I don't know if that's familiar to you or not, but it's a familiar term legally. And so one of the entire articles we wrote is on key TAM, because that's just something that most PIs haven't been aware of. That's
Mm.
where an individual, a private citizen or company can sue on behalf of the federal government. And if, the court rules in their favor, they can get 15 to 30% of that settlement.
Mm.
And now I'm not an attorney, so this is not legal advice in any
Right,
way.
exactly. You know, that
I will
disclaimer for
caveat it
sure.
with that, right? But exposing PIs to, hey, this is an avenue, and there are a lot of attorneys that work key TAM cases that need PIs in those cases. And if that's something that interests you, then you can, we write in these articles, we recommend that you go then and do some outreach to those particular attorneys if those
Yeah.
are cases that you're
So
particularly
would this
interested in.
be like something like a terrorist attack where you have an individual who maybe lost a loved one that's now wants to bring a civil suit against a particular, terrorist organization or a country that allegedly sponsors terrorism, something like that?
I have not seen key TAM used in a terrorism investigation
Yeah.
yet. It's largely if you're defrauding the government.
Okay.
So
All right.
it's
So
usually like a healthcare, fraud. If you're
I
a
got you.
doctor and you're aware of your organization, conducting Medicare, Medicaid fraud, then
Okay.
that doctor can hire, right, an attorney and a PI to then report on the
Okay. So
defraud
for
of
like
the government.
whistleblower situations,
Yes,
essentially. Okay.
yes,
Very
but
interesting.
uh-huh. Yeah, so I have not seen it on the terrorism. I think that the National Security and the Bureau is all over that. So I don't think you have to bring
I
it on behalf of them.
I think it would make a
I
cool
think,
movie. I don't know. It's like a John Grisham novel or something.
yeah, I do love a good John Grisham book.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
I can see Tom Cruise playing that character. Just saying, just throwing it out there. No Ryan Reynolds. We've seen too much of him.
No, you're not a fan of Ryan.
It's all interesting stuff and very a very different approach. We get so drilled down on that tactical side of what we do, that maybe sometimes you overlook it. And even thinking about services you could provide the attorneys that you're working with, right? On if you're working on a big case and you're looking for trends that may help educate a juror on a particular issue, maybe you can add value that way by doing that research and providing that information to um, that particular law firm. These are all different avenues that I think may be
Yeah.
helpful.
And we do put out proactively, right, information in our newsletters. It was quarterly. We get they're long form articles, three
Mm.
long form articles every quarter. But based on feedback from our subscribers and just internally, we're moving to monthly. So I'm
Okay.
really excited about that. So we're just going to do one article a month.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but on the flip side, if there is a particular case or investigation or topic, right, that you are working and you are working with an attorney and you need an analyst to maybe do that for you on that particular topic, we can also do that too on an ad hoc basis, right? That we won't put in the newsletter. It's not to everyone, it's just between ourselves and the client. So in that
Great.
instance, if you do have an attorney, right, that says, we're working this case, we kind of want to know what's going on across the country or what the trends are with that,
Yeah.
we can then do an article specific for, you as our client.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Well, this is a good point. I think we're going to take a break and give our sponsors a minute to chat about what they do. And when we come back, I want to just keep digging into this and understanding the added value that Pivot Point kind of brings to different legal issues and different things out there. So everybody sit tight, and we will be right back.
After 4 years of development, Scope Now is proud to announce the release of Grid. Grid combines OSINT with real-time physical data to achieve new levels of intelligence gathering. Grid supports over 50 data types and hundreds of thousands of sources. Upgrade your OSINT capabilities with Grid and elevate your intelligence team today at scopenow.com. The Campbell Group has teamed up with PI Perspectives to offer listeners top-notch, affordable insurance solutions. Private investigators can get insurance for their business for as low as $305 per year. Apply now at piperspectivesinsurance.com and receive a quote back within 24 hours. Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Over the past year, our industry has been the target of foreign governments and agencies that have attempted to recruit unsuspecting investigators to gather intelligence or immediate expatriates. PI Perspectives is teaming up with the Federal Bureau of Investigations to get the word out about this ongoing crisis. If you've been contacted by an individual or company that might seem suspicious, please contact the FBI at tips.fbi.gov. You can also contact the New York field office at 212-384-1000 to report suspicious activity in any state. The link is also in the show notes. Even if you completed a job and it still doesn't sit right with you, you can report this activity. The only way to stop this trend is to work together. So let's do it. Satellite Investigations has launched its new website full of great new content. Matt and his team have released some great informative blogs. Make sure you log into LinkedIn and follow Satellite Investigations for the latest content.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we're here with Melody Bruns from Pivot Point Consulting. We are talking about in a different way to look at statistics and analysis and really very interesting stuff here. So Melody, I want to welcome you back to the program.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So before we took a break here, we started talking about the different use cases potentially that an investigator can use to have this analytical data, this information. We were talking about your newsletter and how you basically talk about different trends in the industry. So how did this become a passion for you? What kind of led you in this direction to do this kind of work on the side?
Do this kind of work in general?
Yeah, I mean,
or lately?
listen, people that get into working for the FBI, you figure okay, they want to be a tactical person. They want to go capture the bad guy, right? Mm-hmm. This is kind of a different angle.
It is
more
it's funny
fun of things, right? So, how did you decide to do that? How'd you fall into that?
Yeah, I love that question. It's funny you say that, actually. I mentioned briefly that I had majored in business. Mm-hmm. And so I was focused on business, and I actually went to a career fair, a business career fair, and I walk in and there's a booth with the FBI there. And There's one guy behind there and no one is talking to him. And I thought in my head, well, what is the FBI doing at a business
exactly, they're looking
fair?
For somebody.
Shouldn't they be And then I kind of felt bad because no one was talking to him, right? And so I thought, well, when else am I going to get to talk to someone from the FBI? So I walked up and said, hello. And I said, not for nothing, but what are you doing at a business recruitment fair? Because I assumed, kind of like you, right? More tactical government, And he said, well, we actually have these other positions too. Right. And we have a financial analyst position and we have an intelligence analyst position. And I was like, oh, well, those sound really interesting.
Did he tell you that you'd be chained to a desk for 30 years?
No, he didn't. He didn't. And he was an agent, actually. The funny part of the story is that he wasn't even a recruiter. The recruiter had called in sick. So apparently they just got some guy from the squad to go in and
You got the short stick that day.
No, I was like, well, apparently you did a good job because you got me out of it. So
so he's talking about different stuff here. Yeah.
Yeah, I forget to mention that this is 2 months before my graduation. So it wasn't early on, and so it was I needed a job soon. But after talking to him, I just found the intel analyst position really interesting. And I just thought, well, let me go try it. Let me go do it. And I was then a year later moving to DC and learning on the job. And it becomes, it becomes a passion project, right? You want to give
Yeah.
back to the community, you want to do good for the people. And when I left the bureau, like I still had that drive and desire, right?
Right.
And law enforcement, anyone that's been in law enforcement, government knows that you have so much work, right? And you're not going to be able to get to every case that you come across. And that's where I really find that PIs can add such a value. It's this gap in the market and this need that people have, right? That if a company or an individual has the funds to hire a PI, they can really get some answers and closure and support, right, to bring forth um, justice in a way, just maybe not law enforcement. So law enforcement has its purpose and its need, but there's so many cases that they're just not going to be able to get to because lack of
No,
resources and
it
power.
makes sense. It makes sense. I would say that probably the work that you would do would be for investigators that are representing, corporations and things like that. Like I see like another vertical here. You're talking about know your client, uh, negotiations and things like that, looking for leverage when there is that back and forth, or maybe a hostile takeover of a board, and you're looking, there's a particular individual or a particular message that individuals on the board are trying to put forth, understanding that what that message is nationally, maybe, or what that
Mhm.
message is within your particular market, and how could this potentially be damaging to to the board, to the company itself.
True. That's
I see
true.
that as like definitely another vertical where your services could be useful and helpful for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And there's going to be an education curve, right? Like after 9/11, when a lot of analysts were hired to the FBI and showed up, right? The investigators are like, well, how do we use you? And we're like, well, we don't
Yeah,
know, right? And we
yeah,
worked through those growing pains together. And now it's really apparent, right?
yeah.
The complementary roles we have. And so because the PI industry as a whole largely hasn't had that support yet, because no one's really been in that position to provide that support yet. There will be an education with what we do and how we can support and a learning curve, right,
Sure.
on this private sector side. But I know that in your PI survey with Kelly Riddle, you had mentioned that I think 77% of private investigators have between 1 and 3 people on their team. So they're
Mhm.
smaller teams, and if they do need a resource, an ad hoc basis, right? Or they do need a sounding board, or they do need someone to kind of lead them through structured analytical thinking session, right? We can support those smaller teams as well
That's great.
that may
Yeah,
not be able to hire a full-time employee.
it's a very interesting industry. I find myself, at it for a couple of years. I've been doing this for a few years,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah.
and you see all different types of structures of business. Whether it be the one man band, small shop, to somebody who's maybe mid-sized, maybe 3 or 4 employees, to maybe 10 employees, to 70, 80 employees, and we all target different markets, right? So or different type of clientele. Um, and it's so diversified, our industry. It's so interesting. Some are prior law enforcement. I would say most. I think that was one of the questions there on the survey. I don't remember the answer, but it is. Most of this is a second career for folks in this industry. There are a few like myself where it's the first career, and anytime I find one of those, it's like I feel like we got to get a tattoo or something. Like
Love.
all of us have the same tattoo and be like, yeah, I'm one of you too, type of
It's
deal.
like one of those meetups where everyone with the first name meets up, like everyone Kevin meets up in a certain city. You can have an event where every first career PI meets up together for like a
Yeah.
networking event.
Yeah. Well,
I think the survey said that like 40% had no prior law enforcement experience.
yeah,
I think.
yeah. I don't remember the exact number, but it's interesting because um, I feel like those are the folks too that really could benefit from what you do, because they don't have that law enforcement experience, and they don't really understand the full capabilities of analytics and how it can work in your favor. And as an entrepreneur, as a business person, how do you make money off that, right? Like how can I provide a quality product, right? So now you're talking about a higher level product that you'll be producing because of the data that's attached to it. Um, and in the end, your client's happy, you make money off of it. Pivot's making money because they're doing their thing. Like everybody's happy on things. So it's a win for everybody
Yeah.
for sure.
And I forgot to mention that Pivot Point Consulting is comprised exclusively of former and retired FBI analysts.
Hmm.
So I know that there's a lot of former FBI agent teams and
Yeah.
consulting agencies out there. But because analyst careers are typically longer, right? They're in, the government longer, in their roles longer, but they have seen a lot of interest of some of the former analysts who have retired, still being able to provide some support, right? They didn't
Right.
lose all the information that they had gained in their 30-year
You learn
career.
something for 30 years.
Yeah, yeah. And they still got, they still have a lot of information in their heads that they can share
Sure.
with someone. And then there's some other former analysts who've moved on to private sector roles but would love to
Mhm.
do some consulting as well. And um, so yeah, so we provide that home for the former. Yeah, I mean, you will be getting with Pivot Point Consulting, you will be getting a former FBI analyst
Yeah.
to help you. And we can also, I don't know if I mentioned it, but we can lead you through a strategy session too. So we're talking about how can you, make money right off of this. Essentially, if we lead you through a team strategy session, if you have been stuck on a particular investigation or topic, and we lead a team strategy session, those are typically an hour and a half. In an hour and a half, you can have an entire game plan where you want to take your investigation that you didn't have before. And that's one of the client success stories is that we've had is that we had a client come to us who had a lot of amount of information on an investigation that they were working. And for their privacy, I'm not going to say what kind of investigation it was,
It's okay.
but they had so much information and they contacted me and we hopped on a Zoom call that day and I led them through a structured analytic technique session. And don't let that scare you because you probably do that normally.
Yeah.
A structured analytic technique or an SAT, you do that when you do timeline analysis, you do that when you do brainstorming. But
Yeah.
there's one called decomposing data through systematic inquiry. And I led them through that with the vast amount of information that they had. And within an hour and a half, we had identified what information they had, what information they needed, and a list and priority order of their next investigative steps.
Yeah.
And they said that they had been, trying to figure out how to approach this for 3 days. And in an hour and a half, they had a PowerPoint deck, you know, with all that information documented where they could then, take. So it does save, time when you actually really come up with a game plan of how to approach your
Yeah.
investigation.
Like these are some of the things that, AI is not going to replace that, right? It really isn't. I mean, you can
Correct.
ask Chat GPT to organize stuff for you, but you're not going to get 30 years worth of experience kind of plugging in and that human
Great
element
point.
of
Yeah, that's a great point.
uh,
Yeah,
so
because especially the structured analytic thinking, right? We're going to need to decipher between what's authentic
mm,
and real and facts and what's not.
yeah,
And the skill that we're going to need for that is thinking. We need
yeah,
to structure our thinking, right? And so, if anything, thinking as a skill is going to be so much more valuable going forward with
yeah.
with AI present.
I have this feeling that you read a lot of books growing up. Maybe.
Nancy Drew. And then my brother's Hardy Boys. Yes.
I'm kind of getting that sense that you were somebody who liked to read growing up.
How'd you know?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
a
it's
trained
okay.
investigator, aren't
There you
you?
go. There you go. Yeah, I just get that sense, man. Like that craving for knowledge and
Mhm.
problem solving, and looking at things a different way. It's sometimes we overlook that. And I think sometimes we do get caught up in the tactical side of things, and obviously technical is going to take up a huge amount of budget too. I feel like almost selling the idea of looking at things differently or a different way can be a challenge, I think, to a lawyer client, a government agency, whoever's paying the bills, getting
Yeah.
them to subscribe to the idea um, can be a challenge. But the payoff I think is there as well. You talk about you're structuring how an investigation is going to take place or how to proceed with things. Well, that's saving time and money right there because you're not wasting
Correct.
time going down rabbit holes for things that are not going to be necessary. So there is a benefit towards organization. Um, and I've seen
And
that
that's
in themes too, you know.
Yeah, and that's why we loved your episode 219 was also on the top
Oh, look at
list for
shout out to
investigators.
me.
Shout out to you. But that was the episode where you were talking about the art of investigation.
Mhm.
I think it was the third
Yeah.
episode of that series.
Yep.
And all of that episode was about creativity, um, integrity, right? Self-control, all of that has to do with
Yeah.
thinking. And
Yep.
so that's one of the reasons that made our list too, is because
Yeah.
it's so valuable. So I think that investigators know that that's needed, right? I mean, it was included
Yeah.
in the book and you talked about it in the podcast, but you're right. Just reiterating that the creativity and kind of thinking outside the box is needed because so many times we get focused on, well, I know this is probably the outcome of the case, and how come the information isn't
Yeah.
adding up to that?
Yeah. I mean, if you get stuck, right, it's a good place to kind of start off with it. So
Exactly.
yeah, Chelsea Benz and Bruce Sackman, they're the co-authors of The Art of Investigation and The Art of Investigation Revisited, which is the second version. And they came up with a genius idea where they pretty much ask, I think it was about 15 investigative professionals to choose a topic that a good investigator, characteristic that a good investigator would have. So it's not necessarily teaching you the hard skills of how to do surveillance or how to do open source intelligence. It's more along the lines of what are these traits or these skills that you really need to hone on to be like a really good investigator. So the concept is really amazing. I got to write in the first book. I did mine on energy, right? So the energy it takes to actually start a business and survive and all this other stuff.
I love
And it's
that.
been, yeah, it's been great. Chelsea and Bruce are fantastic. I think I was talking to you the other day. I think they're doing a third one now too, where they just keep getting greenlit to continue and do it. And like for me, selfishly, I love being a part of that project because Chelsea and was a professor at John Jay College in New York, and that's my alma mater. So it's like
Oh, nice.
it's the textbook that she used. So it's like if I had a chance to write a textbook for the college I went to, like why would you not want to do
Oh,
that?
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, coming full circle. And there's nothing better than sharing your knowledge, right,
sure.
with those who are up and coming
We have to.
in the
Yeah,
field.
we have to. That's what this
Hmm.
podcast is about. It's what Investigators Toolbox is about. It's why I personally participate in a whole bunch of boards for national nonprofit associations for our industry. It's so important to leave it better than when you got here,
Yeah.
and to really advocate and make sure that we're doing our very best to preserve the integrity of what we do, right? If no one's going to teach you or show you how to do something, if no one's going to game plan with you how to, analytically approach something, the quality level of the work product in general, the whole industry is going to suffer, right? So
Yes.
what does that mean? That means nobody's going to hire us because they're
Hmm.
wasting money, right? And or nobody's going
Right.
to pay us the amount of money that we're looking for because there's no value to there. And we're competing against AI, right? So if we're not making ourselves better than the computers that are out there, what are we doing?
And we have a lot of responsibility as part of the PI industry or community because it's kind of a self-regulating
Yeah,
entity,
I
right?
really, yeah.
You don't have a headquarters in DC, right,
Right,
telling you
right.
how to do things or giving you a guidebook. And so there
Yeah,
is that extra effort and
sure.
energy needed to do that. So yes, but you're right. If we as a collective or a whole end up kind of smearing our name, then that affects everyone, right?
Sure.
Not just that particular individual.
Yeah. This is great. This has been a great chat. I think we're going to wind down here. Melody, I want to thank you so much for coming on and just chatting about these things and telling us or teaching us a little bit about what you do. I got to say, I understand it even better than when we initially had our conversation. Still
Good.
trying to wrap my head around it. But
I
I'm
know.
glad. No, I'm glad we took this walk here because I think there is added value in what you do. And again, just spitballing and talking through some of the things that I do as an investigator, where I'm saying, okay, yeah, I could see where this would be a tool in my toolbox, an extra card in deck, whatever you want to call it, something that you can present to your client as added value, something to consider, right? We'll put your contact info in the show notes, but why don't you tell folks how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can go to pivotpointconsulting.co, not .com, .co. And I'm also on LinkedIn as well. So Melody Bruns, you can reach out to me there. And I just wanted to thank you, Matthew, for the invite and the connection and just everything you're doing with PI Perspectives. As a listener,
Mhm.
definitely value obtaining information that way. Listen to every episode the last year and a half to 2 years. So
Appreciate that.
since I discovered you.
Yeah, I appreciate
So
that.
thank you for the content that you're putting out there, and thanks to your guest as well.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thanks that anyone can have with this stuff is just support the sponsors. Because obviously, we wouldn't be able to do the show if I didn't have such awesome sponsors that are helping pay for the production and making sure that we're getting a quality product out there. So
Yes.
yeah, thank you. Thank
Thanks
you
to the
for tuning
sponsors.
in.
Thank
I feel like I'm obligated to have you on that round table when we do the our next
You're
survey.
so
So,
nice.
so we may
You're
see you
not
again.
obligated for anything, but I definitely look forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah,
And then if people are interested, on the website, you can find the Focused Private Intelligence newsletter.
great. Yeah, definitely go check it out. And we're actually going to see each other in person at the Tally conference that's coming up in October. It's the first week of October. If folks are in the Texas area, I strongly, I think it's in Fort Worth or
Arlington?
Arlington. It's actually in
Okay.
Arlington. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I strongly suggest you coming out and check out that event. Tally always puts on a great conference. And I think Brandon Perrin's one of the speakers. Like they got a really good lineup there. So, okay, we're going over here. So thank you everyone for checking this episode out, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.
Thanks for checking out the show. It's interesting to see how Melody and Pivot Point can offer some real value to certain investigations. Data analysis is such an important aspect of what we do, so we want to thank our new sponsor, 4 Pillars Insurance Research, for sponsoring the show. Additional thanks to Campbell Insurance Group, TrackOps, Scope Now, and the PI Institute for Education for sponsoring the podcast. Also, don't forget about investigatorstoolbox.com, where you can type in Perspective 50 to save $50 when you join. And please follow Matt and Satellite Investigations on LinkedIn if you have a question about the show. Email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We'd like your feedback to bring you the best shows possible, and we'll be back next week with a new show. So make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.